What's going on, guys? Round 9. Hey, Elias. Welcome. So this is really the game to watch because if Fabiano wins, he's gonna catch up to Nepo and slow Nepo down so that everybody else can catch up to him too. So this is a crucial game, and he's better. So we're gonna keep an eye on this one, and we'll check out some of the other ones too. Knight takes d5. So I guess the bishop's going to take here with check. King's going to move somewhere. There you go. I guess bishop e3 is a move too. I don't know what's happening there though. Where am I watching the game on? Yeah, that's a good question. Let me put that in the chat for you guys. Or I'll put it in the description, actually. I think I can edit the description while we're live. See. Just gonna say watch the games here. See if that will work. Alright, I just updated the description, so you should be able to check it out. It's just on Chess. They're broadcasting the games, and you can just switch around to all the live ones. So let's see. Perugia and Rapport. This one's also kind of important because Rapport is not too far behind. I'm listening to the broadcast too, so they're talking about this game right now. Yeah, we'll do a quick recap. That's a good question. Give me 1 second. All right, so yeah, Nepo has 6, Fabiano with 5, Hikaru 4.5, and then Rapport is 4. So let's go ahead to the let's check the Fabiano game first. So we had another Petrov, which Jan has been playing this pretty much exclusively this tournament against e4. And very similar to the game he played against Rapport. Was that two rounds ago, I think? 2 or 3 rounds ago? Where we see this c4 move. But there was a key difference. Yeah, right here. Rapport played like queen b3 immediately. And we ended up seeing later that like sacrifice where the queen came down here and took the rook, and there was, supposed to be a perpetual check. This time Fabiano plays rook e1 instead, and then next move after the bishop comes out, he plays queen b3. So it's similar, but it's completely different lines. And then queen d7, Nepo just defends it this time. And then knight to h4. This was kind of the surprise move for Nepo. So check out the time. Like nobody's really thought until this move. And then you can see, yeah, Nepo spends almost 10 minutes there, and then he really starts thinking after that. So it's kind of a weird move. Knights on the rim, usually are not good. But in this case, the idea is that white just wants to trade, get the bishop pair. And so black has to kind of waste a move to go back. The knight's a little bit awkward, but then, I don't know what black's bishop's doing on e6. Queen goes back. And then, yeah, Nepo was thinking a lot here. I don't know exactly what the theory is on this position. Let me see. Yeah, this hasn't even been played in the database, it looks like. I think, actually, let's go back. Where was the move? Yeah, knight h4, at least according to the Lead Chess database, hasn't really been played. So we're kind of already in unknown territory. a3 is just stopping knight to b4, so the knight doesn't work these guys. f5, pretty aggressive. Black's mostly just trying to defend the knight, but also potentially activating the rook at some point. Knight to c3, the rook comes over, f3, black has to decide where this knight's going to go. And instead of moving it, he decides to go for the counterattack on the knight over here. g3 to defend it. And this is all preparation from Fabiano. You can see his time, 154. Like, he's hardly used any time. So, you know, clearly surprised Nepo in this game. So knight to d6, queen to a4. This is a really nice move. The point is that you can't just trade queens like this, because at the end of the day, you have problems here with these bishops. You can't move this one or you lose this one. And if you try to defend this one, I think there's some tactics here like bishop g5. Yeah, bishop g5 is just winning. The rook is basically trapped unless it goes back, and then you lose this guy. So, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. So black has to be really careful here with the rook on the e-file. So he plays bishop f6, you know, getting one of those bishops out of the way so that now if you trade queens, you can actually move that bishop and you don't have to worry about your other bishop behind it. We do get the queen trade, knight takes d5, and then king to g2. So this is, now we're live. So Engine likes white's position, plus 1.4. That's pretty big. So it's looking like Fabi has nice chances to win this. Let's see what else is going on while we let them think here. Check the report game. Okay, it's still Aruja's turn. Let's do a quick recap of this game. So we get Rui Lopez, d3. This is kind of the anti-Berlin system, I think is what they're calling it. I actually learned this just from watching the candidates. I wasn't really familiar, but apparently like Berlin systems, black usually takes on e4, and so when you play d3, you kind of prevent that. So we get bishop c5 and then knight to d4. I don't think that's a super common. Oh no, it is pretty common actually. Interesting. I didn't know that. So you trade off those knights right away, even though you kind of lose a little bit of tempo on your bishop. It kind of frees up black's position a little bit. And so sometimes when you're playing with black, you can have these like cramped positions. And so I guess trading that pair of knights can help with that. And then I guess this is still theory. And queen e7 is kind of like a weird move. Yeah, I only been played one time in the database here. So Rapport is doing some weird stuff, but he had some nice success last time. Bishop g4, another... It's kind of a weird square for the bishop, but it's with tempo on the queen. You can't block it with f3 because the pin. And so I guess just quick development is what he was going for. So we get queen e1. The king goes over. This is a common idea, especially when you want to push your f-pawn forward. You got to get out of the diagonal. And so just slide the king over. It's nice and safe. And now you can use your f-pawn to do stuff, which he does, f4. So black expands on the queen side. We get this. So it's a piece sacrifice, but not really, because at the end of it, you can play d4 and you fork the pieces and you're guaranteed to get a piece back. And so we end up with this position. And now bishop e3 is played. Engine was really liking bishop to d2. And the point is, after this, you can play... Well, I thought it was going to be bishop. No, your bishop's hanging. You got to play rook c1 first, defend this. You're threatening bishop c3. And I don't know, what does black have to do here? Knight to d7, bishop to c3 out. Engine says this is a pretty nice position for white. So, but in the game, we have bishop to e3. So, Rapport is thinking. And let's go back to this game. Okay, nothing's been played yet. All right, let's check on Hikaru. Ooh. Ooh, that's not looking good for black. So let's see what happened in this game because I wasn't really following this one too closely. Okay, another Rui Lopez. Okay, same opening that we just saw, except so I think was it Castles was played before, and then Knight D4 happened, and now we get C3. So there's no ideas of Knight to D4. Now Castles D5. Okay, A5. This is, I guess, what Hikaru likes to play. It keeps white from playing B4, so kind of like sort of, defends your bishop on C5 a little bit. You don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. But at the same time, you give white this B5 square instead of playing like A6. They kick that away, so it's kind of a trade-off. Queen to C2. Okay. Where did Hikaru start thinking? Because there was a moment where he was, yeah, right here. It looks like A4 was a surprise move. Yeah, it's in the database a few times though, so I don't know. He really started thinking there though. And then yeah, that was the big think right there. 14 minutes. Anyway, after, let's see, where did the advantage really happen? Right here. Bishop G4. Computer doesn't like Bishop G4. It was saying just Bishop to B6. And I guess the point is that you're just losing a pawn. Like, if you just take back, white's going to just take this pawn on A5, and it's a pawn. The only way black gets the pawn back is if they sacrifice here and then take it. But now you have this problem that, I mean, look at these pawns. This outside protected pass pawn. And I don't even know if taking that F pawn was really that great for black, because now you have to worry about this F file too. And so it seems like that's the issue with bishop to G4. So after this, Hikaru takes on F3 first, then he takes back. And after knight takes E5, queen to E6. So basically he's saying, okay, I lost a pawn. Now I'm going to go and prepare to do some stuff on white's king. Because that's I guess you could say the disadvantage for white, right? The king is now exposed. But, I mean, I don't know. Something like this, you could also use that file to attack. So let's see. Queen E2 and knight to H5. Yeah, so he's eyeing the F4 square. This is also an idea. Check is an idea. And don't forget about this bishop. It is playing a role in the attack in some cases. So should be pretty interesting. I'm excited to see where this goes. Let's go back here. Has anybody moved? Nope, we're still on King G2. Let's go back to the report game. We did get some moves here. The queen takes B2 was played. Okay, that's to be expected. Engine says it's completely equal. And then this game. Okay. Yeah, it looks pretty drawish. 3-6, 3-6. I mean, I guess black has some chances, but white's position looks pretty solid too. So we don't care too much about that game. We want to see what happens in this one especially. All right. You want to improve your chess. Which book should you read? So it depends on what you're talking about. Opening books, I like FCO, Fundamental Chess Openings. That's really good for like kind of high level. I'd say high level, but it gives you the main lines, but it doesn't go into like all the weeds of the theory, but it's going to give you a really good idea of openings. So FCO, Fundamental Chess Openings. For tactics, I recommend just like a checkmate, solving checkmate problems. So like 1001 Brilliant Ways to Checkmate is the one that I used. There are other ones, just you want to be solving lots of mate problems, mate in ones, mate in twos, mate in threes. And then for endgames, depending on what level you need, what is it called? Winning Chess Endings. Winning Chess Endings by Yasser Sirwan is what I recommend. Let's see. Why do you play on Lichess more? I play on, actually I play on both chess.com and Lichess. I just like the analysis board on Lichess better. I just like the engine. I just feel like it's a little bit faster, at least the browser based version. And yeah, thanks Lava, appreciate it. Thanks, Vorador. Recap of Duda and Ding. Yeah, as long as nobody else has moved, we can just do a recap of that one too. Let's see. Okay, we got Queen F2, Bishop E6. Pretty equal over there. And yeah, I imagine Timur is going to think a while on this position. Yeah, let's do a recap of this one. I actually haven't kept up with this one, so we'll see. All right. English. Queen A4 check. So sometimes white will just leave that pawn sit there and do other stuff, but you can, like we see here, go ahead and just recapture it right away, which Ding decides to do. Okay, most people are just developing. Interesting. He plays B6 and allows this attack on the rook, but apparently there's not really any good moves. Like you could go knight E5, but black's just going to play bishop B7 and it's defended. So D4, bishop F4, okay. Then brings the rooks over. This is a good idea. Like a lot of times, if you can double up rooks on one file, that's a good thing to do because they can get a lot more tactical ideas when you can double up your rooks like this. So, and he even has a triple battery now. All three pieces lined up on the D file. Okay, after the trade, now it's just pretty equal. And it's looking very drawish. Okay, so that's how we got the rook down here. And now we're live. Yeah, so I mean, I don't really know too much to say here. It looks like it's going to probably be a draw. All right, let's go check this game. Let me see what the commentators are saying. Okay, that's huge. Sorry, guys. I was trying to show you the standings. Jan has 6, Fabiano with 5, Hikaru 4.5, Rapport 4, and then Ding has 3.5. So, all right, let's go back to this one. See if anybody's moved. Nope, still thinking. So, I'm wondering if some time pressure is going to come into this game because Nepo usually doesn't think this long. He's like almost always ahead on the clock. 42 minutes already. We're only on move 21. And remember, they have to get to move 40 before they get the extra time, and there's no increment at all right now. So, I mean, we're talking 19 moves. That's about 2 minutes per move, which is very fast, especially in some of these complicated positions where there's lots of options, lots of lines. Even though the queens are traded, there's a lot of pieces left. So, I'm expecting that we might see some sort of time scramble in this game. Which is always exciting. Let's check Hikaru's game. Yep, Timur's still thinking. All right, do you guys have questions? You want to analyze a position, analyze a particular game? What's going on? Rianch, hey. Oh, we have a move. Rook to e8. So Stockfish is liking bishop f4. As a general rule, if somebody puts a rook on an open file, you don't want to take it, because then when they recapture, they just have complete control over the file. So bishop f4 is like, okay, if black takes me, well, now I'll recapture. Now I have control over the file. So bishop f4 is Stockfish's recommendation, which makes a lot of sense. Also, knight e7 check looks kind of interesting. So the king's gonna, well, no, the king's gonna come out. What happens if it moves here? Bishop f4 now. There's this fork here, but this is, you're basically going to lose both knights just to get a rook and a pawn. It's not worth it. This is really bad for white. If you do this, you're just going to lose. Black can even, oh, even just take the rook. Yeah, that's a terrible idea. But just developing, and this knight's actually really annoying, kind of shutting down the rook. So, back to the live position. Oh, he took the rook. Did he take it? No, he didn't. That's just my analysis. Sorry. Here we go. Live position. Sorry, guys. I'm all over the place. What about bishop to d2? Yeah, bishop to d2. Not a bad move as far as the rooks are concerned. The problem is it's just really passive and you're not attacking anything, and now you're actually losing a pawn here. Bishop f4 is different because you're attacking the knight. So black can't really get away with taking this, or you're going to be taking the knight for free here. So that's why bishop d2 is not going to cut it in this case. What about rook to e7? Yeah, so that's an interesting move. Generally speaking, rooks on the 7th are good. Engine says it's not awesome because of the move knight to c5, just defending. So I'm not exactly sure what the problem is. Let's see, bishop f4, knight takes d3. Yeah, Engine says it's equal for some reason, so there's something about it it doesn't like. I'm not sure off the top of my head. It just looks like bishop f4 is a very strong threat on the knight. And how is black going to deal with that? I think that's why Stockfish is saying you got to play bishop f4. Like, if we're playing black, what do we do with our knight? I mean, can you move here? It is defended. What happens if we just try to, move over here? Oh, a4, and it's trapped. There you go. So you can't go to b5. You can't go here. You can't go here. You can go to f7, but that looks like it's probably bad. Why is that bad? Knight to e7. Bishop takes a6. Oh, look at that. You're losing a piece. So, you can't go to f7, which means if you're going to move the knight, you have to go back to c8, which is a very awkward square to just go backwards like that. So that's why bishop f4 is so strong. And if you try to defend the knight, you can't really defend it. You have no pieces that can defend it. Rook here, but you just trade rooks. And then you take it and you get the attack. So, basically what Stockfish is saying is you play bishop f4, you develop a piece with tempo on the knight, and at the same time you force it to go backwards to a pretty passive square. So that's really good for white. So I would be surprised if Fabi, plays anything other than bishop to f4. How can we use the computer analysis on Lichess? Because sometimes it tells you the best move, but you don't know why it is. Yeah, so what kind of like what I'm doing here. So like it told me bishop f4, but I was like, well, why is that the best move? So you want to just ask yourself, starting with the obvious moves, like if I'm playing black and I'm gonna do something with my knight, what am I gonna do? Well, I might try to move it over here because I'm like, okay, we'll just trade pieces. And then I see the next move that Stockfish says a4, and I'm like, oh, now I get it. The knight's trapped. I can't do anything with my knight. Okay, and then you go back and you just keep making moves. What happens on knight f7? I look at the next move and I see knight to e7 check. And I'm like, why is that the move? King h8, what's the follow-up? And I just follow it until it makes sense to me. So when I got to this point, that's when it made sense to me. I'm like, oh, I see. I have a rook lined up on 2 bishops. So you just keep going. And if I didn't get it here, I'd keep following it. I'd say, okay, bishop takes b2, rook takes d7. And now, hopefully, you could understand what Stockfish said. Kind of the idea. All right, now we're back. This is the live position. So this is going to be very interesting if Fabiano wins this game, because then they'll be tied at 6, and I don't know what's happening. Let's see with Hikaru and Rapport. Let's check. Rapport's game looks very equal according to Stockfish, but I don't know. There's lots of stuff happening here. I mean, there's a lot of pawns here. Definitely a lot of play left in that one. And then Hikaru's game, let's see. We got a move. B4 was played. Yep, that's what Stockfish said. Stockfish approves. So just expanding on the queen side, defending your knight. Kind of, for the moment, ignoring whatever black is doing over here. Stockfish is saying, I don't really see what you're trying to do. So let's just say black tries to do something on the king side here. Like, what's a move that we might see? Like f5, just to try to like get the rook involved. Nope. Oh. All right, Stockfish. I see what you're doing. Queen a2. Look at that. It's like, nope, we'll just trade queens. No more attack on my king. And guess what? I've got the protected pass pawn over here that I'm going to push on a5, and you have to deal with that the rest of the game. So f5's no good. What else could black play? I mean, you can throw in a check, but it doesn't do anything. And then now you have to worry about your own king. You can come down here, but I don't really know why. Like, what happens if this happens? Oh, knight to g3. There's an interesting line for you guys. Wow. So it's a fork, first of all. But you can't take it with this pawn because it's pinned, which means you have to take it this way, but then there's a perpetual check. How's that for an end? So that's an interesting line. If you kind of try to be greedy and take the pawn, knight to g3 happens. So queen h3, I mean, there is a threat of knight to g3. I guess white could play something else. Stockfish is saying the only move is king to h1. Because you get out of this, and so you stop the knight move. And what happens after like knight f4? Well, that's a blunder. Why is that a blunder? Because you take it, and you just take here, and black has nothing, and you've got all sorts of extra pawns. Okay. So I don't know what Hikaru is going to play here. I really don't. He has 30 minutes on move 18. So we might also see a time scramble here too. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. Who are you rooting for? I'm just rooting for exciting games, to be honest with you. I don't have a particular player that I want to win. I just like to see interesting games. So I prefer games like this where it looks like there are winning chances as opposed to this sort of just kind of boring end games that look like they're going to be draws. I like the more exciting ones. Here we go. Let's see. Fabiano and Nepo. Fabiano is still thinking. Hikaru has played king to h8. Not a Stockfish move. but it's not really bad either. I wonder, so you remember earlier I showed you the line f5 and Stockfish was immediately like, nope, queen a2 when we trade queens? I guess now f5 is an idea because there's no more queen trade. And so maybe that's the point. Also, if you imagine a future where white does this and brings the rook over, it might make sense to have your king over here so that you don't have to worry about some sort of like tactics. So I guess this is Hikaru just kind of sticking with the plan of like, I'm going to do something over here to like try to attack the king. So he probably wants to get his rook involved. I'm guesstimating. King h1 played. Okay. And so white is, they're both kind of doing the same thing. Get the king out of those diagonals, right? You see top players do this a lot. And it has to do with, even if there's not like an immediate tactic, you don't want to wait around until there is. You just fix the problem before it even becomes a problem, you know? And so we can see that here. Move 19. So yeah, 20 moves, or 21 moves for Hikaru with 29 minutes. Pretty quick. It's going to get interesting. It's going to get real interesting real fast. I mean, I say real fast. It could be like an hour until we see the time scramble, but it's going to happen at some point. You just watched the video about 35 chess principles. Awesome. I'm glad you found it. Looks like they're going to be in time trouble later. Yes, agreed. Yep, King H1. You called that one. Let's see if we have any action over here. Nope. Fabi's still thinking. What about Rapport? We're getting some moves here. Let's back up a few moves. What did we miss here? So, bishop to e6. Bishop to d4. Queen has to move. All right. Bishop c5. Queen has to move again. Okay. And queen to c3. So, I don't know if we're going to see some repeating here or if they're just kind of repositioning. I mean, this looks like a really good square for the bishop because you're stopping black from castling. That being said, I don't really know how you're going to attack the king that easily. This pawn was like gone, it'd be a different story. You could use the e-file, but the pawn's kind of in the way, so I'm not really sure what the plan is, but still, it's a nice square for the bishop. Or a nice diagonal, I should say. But I mean, black can probably just play like this at some point, chase it away, so I don't know. Hikaru should play bishop to b6. Bishop to b6, trying to attack the knight. Yeah, I mean, it's an idea. The only issue that I see with that is the knight's probably going to move. Let's just say knight to c4. And now, after a5, you kind of have to move it again back there, and you just sort of spent 2 moves, and it kind of helped white get that pawn pushing further. So I think that's the problem, probably with bishop to b6. Because this might be something white wants to do anyway, right? Like move the knight there and push the pawn. So you don't want to waste your moves going back and forth if that's what white's going to do anyway. If that makes sense. Fabiano's considering bishop f4 or knight e7 check. Yeah, probably so. Oh, we missed some moves here. So bishop to f4 was played, and knight to c5 was played. Okay, so ignoring this, going for this, and it's getting very complicated. I guess the point is, if white takes here, you've got to take this, and now even though your rook's being attacked, you're also attacking this rook. So if white, let's just say, takes that, that's a big mistake because you can take here with check, and now black is winning. So white would have to actually only move for white to keep it equal as knight to e7. And then the king moves, and then you can move your rook, and then what's happening here? Bishop to b5 saves the pieces. Very complicated position. But there must be another move for white here. Yeah, so instead of taking that, knight to e7 check is how you keep the advantage. All right. What's the point there? King's gonna move somewhere. King to f7, and then what? Bishop to f1. So you throw in the check, you get out of this attack, and you allow your knight to be captured because you're gonna take this at the end with a fork here. I mean, that's pretty crazy. Yeah, if black takes that, they're just in trouble after bishop takes d6. Because even though you can trade, you still have the problem of these guys. So black would have to play what? But we just go back to the same problem. Black doesn't have a good way to defend the knight, and so they have to play knight to c8. And then you play bishop c4. Wow. So there's a lot of maneuvering with these pieces. These kind of positions are like really complicated because there's so many like subtle moves as far as like, I could take, but I don't have to take. I could attack something else, but I don't have to. I could, just retreat. I could defend. Like there's a lot of options to consider. So I imagine Fabiano's going to take his time here just to make sure he gets it right. Stockfish says knight e7 check is the best option, but also rook takes e8. You can throw in the trade and then play rook d1 is another. Wow, there's just so many like pieces. Pretty funny to see so many minor pieces all clumped together like that. You don't normally see that, especially with like no pawns. It's just all the pieces. Crazy these GMs can potentially see these lines. Oh yeah, they're seeing all of these lines. I can guarantee you they're seeing all of these lines and a lot more that we're not even looking at. What's the eval? 1+1.2. You can see the little white bar on the right of the board, the little orange. The orange is the midpoint. So like if the game was equal, it would be white below the orange and black above the orange. But in this case, since white's slightly ahead, you can see how it's past that. Let's see if we have any action in the Hikaru game. We do. Rook to g1. Oh, actually, we missed a couple moves. So after the king slid over, we had h6. Top engine move, by the way, which is interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. I was thinking like f5 to bring the rook up and try to do something, but yeah, that's just not really a great move. h6 and rook to g1. So this makes sense. I think we can understand this move. White's just getting the rook on the open file. And yeah, it looks like this is going to be a fun game, especially as the time pressure kicks in. Check reports game. And still thinking there. Still pretty equal. Nobody's really blundered anything in this game, so that's probably going to be a draw. All right, let's leave it on Fabiano and Nepo for right now. Why do games last 7 hours? FIDE should shorten the time. Yeah, I mean, I think the idea is they don't really want the games to be decided solely based on like who's the faster player or who manages time pressure. They want it to be like who plays, the best chess. And if you make the games too short, then the time pressure sort of takes over the game in a lot of cases. That being said, I think this is a kind of a faster time control than what I remember. I mean, I feel like most of these sort of big, important tournaments have increment like early on, like almost every move. And so the fact that they don't have the increment, I don't know like when that change happened, but that's a pretty big change, I think, to not get the increment until the final time control. So I think a lot of these games have been more exciting because of that. I know 7 hours is still a long time, but I like the way they have it where it's like you kind of get like multiple moments in these longer games. You get multiple moments where the time is about to run out and they make the time control and it's like, okay, everybody can reset, take some time. And then again, at the second time control, you have the same sort of situation. And then at the end, you finally get the increment so that you don't just lose on time. They said this is the first tournament without the increment. Okay, there you go. Thank you, TK. So, can you give a fast recap? Yes. So 97 check. We'll do a recap in just a second. So 97 check was just played, and that's the best move. So he finds it, and Nepo has to play king to f7 to kind of sort of stay in the game. Still better for white. There you go. He plays it right away. And apparently the move now, like we kind of looked at earlier, bishop to f1, which is it's a bit of a weird move, but if you think about it, the bishop's attacked, and you basically just want to kind of deal with that threat and leave your threat for later. And where do you move the bishop to? Well, you don't want to go here or here because the knight takes it, the pawn takes it. You don't want to block your rook, right? So if you're going to stay on this diagonal, that's the only square left. Now, these squares are taken. You could choose one of these two. This doesn't make sense because you're putting your rook in the corner. So really, it's a question of like, do you go to c2 or do you go to f1? And apparently, Engine is saying f1 is better. I think because in the line we looked at later, it just came right back out to c4. And you can't do that from c2. So for example, if you go to c2 and this knight moves, actually, here's another reason. The knight can go to c4 now, and you can't get on that diagonal. And black is moving forward. This knight is looking really amazing, and you gave away your advantage. You go to f1, and that's not an option. The knight has to go back to c8 like we looked at, which is a very, very bad, place for the knight. So because of those reasons, bishop f1, only really good move for white, which I'm pretty sure Fabiano will play that. It's probably the idea, right? He saw like the issue here with the knight, and he's just going to drop back to f1, I imagine. Be surprised if we see any other move. What happens if king h8? Yeah, good question. So let's go back and look at that. So if king h8, apparently the whole strategy changes. You're not going for this approach anymore. And why is that the case? That's the first thing I want to because knight f7 is now a place for the knight, and you just don't really have too much happening. So if king h8, you have to change your strategy, and instead of moving that, you now defend it with the rook. And first of all, black doesn't want to take because now there's there's so many pieces hanging for black here. Everything is just about to be captured. You got this too as well, so black just can't save the pieces. You don't want to take the bishop. If you try to move the knight to get out of this, let's say knight f7, then there's this line bishop takes f5, which unleashes the discovered attack on the bishop here. And this is just really good for white after some kind of a trait. No, you don't even take that. Very complicated. Like, this is not easy to figure out. There's like so many, nope, don't take that piece. Take this one. And wait a second, you need to attack this. And like, there's a lot happening in this position. I would for sure find a way to mess this up if I was playing this game. It's super complicated. So anyway, to answer the question, that's why. Because of this move, rook to d1. And all the pieces that are on the d file. Now, The question that I want to ask now is, what if you played this move anyway after king f7? Why is it different? Because now you lose the knight. And even though you have this, there's knight takes d3 at the end. Wow, so you see what I'm talking about. Very confusing stuff. So, hopefully that answered the question and didn't confuse everyone. King to f7 has been played. And so now we're expecting to see bishop f1. Well, I mean, I guess you can imagine, like, if, Fabiano gets confused with something with this rook to d1 line, maybe he plays rook to d1 and misses something there. But I kind of doubt that's going to happen. And Stockfish is saying bishop takes f5 is another move, which is pretty good for white, but not as good. Let's see what's going on with this. So you've got to defend it enough that if black just tries to take everything, I guess you can just be fine and you win a pawn. You do lose this one though. Oh, then there's bishop d6, so black doesn't do that. Black has to play knight to d3. And now it's just pretty equal. That's not really a great line for white. So bishop f1 is the move that needs to be played. You don't like the tank top, huh? All right, let's see what's going on in some of these other games. Report, we have a move, rook to c1. Lining up on the queen. What move are they on? 24. So we could see some time pressure in this game as well. Let's go check Hikaru's game. Ooh. So let's go back. So after rook g1, f5 was played, which was the idea, but Stockfish does not like it. Why is that the case? Stockfish is saying you capture it, and after the rook takes, you play queen to c4, trying to trade queens again. Of course, black doesn't want that, so queen f6, and then you just take here. Ooh, and look at that. Again, going for the queen trade. So if black doesn't want to trade, they have to go back to f8, but now you can just develop your bishop. And I guess white's just doing fine. Interesting. And the queen's even kind of tied down, guarding the rook. So that's what Stockfish says. Is kind of the main line there. You take and you play queen c4. This is the idea. Trying to force the queen trade, then you follow it up by taking here and also hit the rook. Now, does Hikaru have any other ideas? Like, what about queen takes f5? What happens here? Ooh, that's just really bad, apparently. Knight takes c6. It's not immediately obvious to me why. Because you trade over here. +5 for white? I mean, that's amazing. I mean, I see it's better, but +5 is... Okay. Well, Stockfish is weird sometimes. Anyway, I guess we're going to see captures. At least that's what's supposed to be played. Bishop d2 is also okay. Bishop e3. It's not looking good for Hikaru in this game. And he's lower on time, too. We're only on move 20, so... It was rook g2 played in the game? I think I need to refresh. Sometimes when I analyze too much, it like... Which is the move. Yes, it was played in the game. Wow. Okay. So Timur does not play the best move. And so I guess something about this he was, I mean, looking at it, it is kind of scary. Like you're you're giving yourself double isolated pawns. You're sort of inviting some attack here, right? And so there was something about it he just didn't like, but Stockfish says queen c4 and you're just totally winning. But instead, rook to g2. And now, I don't know. White's advantage just went away a little bit. Significantly. Hmm. Blackfish says the rook's coming over, and now black's going to actually get some nice compensation. Well, it's easy for us, right? We just sit here and say, like, well, Stockfish said this. Like, why didn't you play that move? Obvious, right? Let's go back here. King f7. We're still waiting for bishop f1. We'll check on report. Rook to c1. We're still waiting for how report is going to respond. Let's go check ding and duda. Still waiting for a draw, I imagine. So this seems to be the most interesting game at the moment. Hikaru has 22 minutes and has to figure out a way to keep the attack going. Actually, yeah, Stockfish says there's lots of options. You can play rook f6. You can take this to open up the f file. You can bring this rook over like we mentioned earlier. Even queen to d7, rook to f. I mean, lots of moves are like playable here for black. So very interesting stuff. Questions, predictions on what move they're going to play. What do you guys think? I don't know if you guys are listening to the other commentators, but chess.com, they're basically saying if the position gets simplified, white's going to win the endgame because this pawn's going to be too strong. And so Hikaru has to not trade pieces and keep attacking, which is kind of what, that's exactly what Stockfish was saying. Like, hey, go trade the queens, right? Try to force a queen trade. Because if that happens, you're just going to win the endgame. So obviously, Hikaru knows that and is trying to not trade pieces and mix it up. That's why we saw king h8, right? Because if you imagine if the king was on g8, guess what? Queen c4 is going to happen immediately, and there goes the queens. So, question is, how is he going to try to mix it up? And, not an easy position because there's so many options, right? Like we talked about, rook f6, f takes c6, rook a e8, queen to d7, rook to f7. Like all these moves are possible, and he has to figure out which one's the best. With 20 minutes on the clock and 20 more moves to play, or 19 more moves to play, so it's like a move per minute. Obviously, he's going to think longer than that now and then have to move faster towards the end. Can Hikaru play pawn to f4? So, yes, you can do that, and yes, it does shut down the bishop. The problem is it sort of shuts down your pieces as well. Like when you take here, all of a sudden now you have pressure on the f file. Your rook and your queen can potentially come in. When you do this, you're limiting yourself to you have to figure out a way to get to the king now using sort of like this section of the board, which very limits your options. White already has a rook there. This pawn's kind of in your way. You can't use that square. So somehow you have to figure out like how do you get your rook and your queen to coordinate an attack with the knight. It's not easy to do if you take away too many squares. So that's kind of the issue with f4. Like right now you have this open for your knight, and like I mentioned, once you take here, you have a bigger section of board to work with. And so that's why I don't think we're going to see f4. But you're right, it does shut down the bishop, but the bishop's not really going to go anywhere anyway. So that's why I don't think, f4 really makes too much sense. But it's a good question. This would be a move that you would play let's just say Hikaru had some extra pawns over here and was ahead in material and just wanted to kind of shut things down and slowly play, then you could play that. But in this case, he's trying to create an attack. So you want to look to open it up a little bit more. Knight to f4, yeah, the bishop would just take it. And the bishop's kind of just sitting on the back, and your knight's kind of in an aggressive position, so you probably don't really want to trade that off unless you have a concrete reason. Also, it's going to let the rook come over very quickly if you do that. 17 minutes, though. It's going to get interesting. Going to get interesting. Let's go check on this game. Okay, we're still waiting. Fabiano also down to 24 minutes. Let's go check the report game. Rook to d8 was played. Wow, so allowing the discovered attacks, there's not really too many. This is the only one that really comes to mind, and just putting the rook on d8, which, by the way, was the top engine move. So those are hard moves to play whenever your queen or your king or something is in line with the piece like that. Like it's not easy to play a move like that. But these guys are obviously the best in the world for a reason. Okay. White win a pawn somehow in the world. Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I thought it was going to be a draw. Now I'm like wondering if Ding is going to somehow win this. We'll have to keep an eye on that as well. Okay, we're still waiting, and we're still waiting on Hikaru. So the time pressure is going to be real. What's the best move for Hikaru? So Engine is saying, at least on depth 36, that rook a to e8. So just bringing the other rook over to the kingside center, kind of getting ready to use it to attack. But it also has a lot of moves that are very close in evaluation. Rook to f6, f takes e4, rook to f7, queen to d7. Like all of these moves are playable for black. That's why it's such a difficult position for Hikaru, because, I'm sure he's thinking about all these and he doesn't know. He doesn't have the benefit of the engine to just tell him, oh, hey, this is the best one, just play it, right? Like he has to figure it out. Which one is the best and why is it the best? So 14 minutes is not a lot of time for 19 moves. There we go. We have a move. He captures. So, like I said, it was one of the choices, right? Not the best one, but it was one of the options. So, interesting thing now is that white has only one move to play here. If you guys want to try to figure it out, Stockfish is saying there's only one move for white to play here. If you don't play that move, you're in trouble. What do you guys think the move is? I mean, I think most people would say The obvious sort of move is to recapture with the pawn because you fix your pawn structure. But that's not the correct move in this case. Somebody says bishop to e3. Yeah, bishop to e3 is a blunder because you have this fork happening. Sorry, you have this fork happening. So you can't play bishop e3. I mean, like, I'm just tempted to take this way because I'm like, okay, it attacks the knight. I fix my pawns. I mean, I have this defended already, but that's not the right move. Stockfish says the right move is queen takes e4. You have to take with the queen. Which, I mean, what's the idea here? Rook to f6. Then bishop e3. Queen d5. I don't know. I don't know if he's going to play that. Let's see. What's the problem with this move? Let's see what the problem is. Queen to h3. And I don't even see the idea. Queen to g4. Rook takes f2. Wow. Wow. And if you take the queen, you get checkmated like this. Okay. Okay. What a move. Rook takes f2. Man. Oh, he does play it. He plays it. He plays queen takes e4. There you go. And rook to f6. Wow, we're getting some moves now. Here we go. Here we go. Let's jump over real quick, see if Fabi has moved. Oh no, he took on f5. Oh no. He didn't play bishop f1. He didn't play bishop to f1. Took this way, which if you remember this line, after all this trading happens, it's pretty equal. Pretty equal. Well, that's interesting. And he's low on time too, 19 minutes. Wow. Well, like I said, super easy for me to sit here with the engine and say, how did you not see that? But it's obviously not easy for them. 18 minutes. And Hikaru has 14 minutes. So these are the two games we're going to be focusing on. Let's go back here. Fabiano is about to move. Yep, he takes. I think we're going to see a bunch of trades here. Takes, takes. Yeah, it's not going to be easy to win. So I wonder if he just wasn't sure about something in the bishop f1 line. Like, what was... I wonder what he was afraid of after this. Knight to c8, and maybe didn't realize how strong bishop c4 was. After bishop e6. Yeah, I mean, you have to take with the rook, according to Stockfish, to keep the advantage, which is... Maybe that's not an easy move to find. If you didn't find this line, and then you have to take here with the knight. Yeah, I mean, this is weird, because this looks like, what are you doing? Black's just going to take you. And knight takes d4. Because if you take here, it's just good for black. No, not that way with the knight. Yeah, I mean, I get it. It's not easy to find all these Stockfish moves in a row. It's like boom, 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 boom. You have to see all that stuff. Not easy at all. So he goes for this, which is probably a little more straightforward to actually see. And you got to wonder if he's getting low on time too. So he decides to go for this sort of more concrete line where it's a little bit simpler to, calculate with the time pressure. I don't know. Let's see if Hikaru has any action here. Nope. We're still waiting after the rook f6 idea. So, I mean, I guess the point is you want to just double up your rooks. And you also get some defense on the c6 pawn at the same time. This is probably the idea. Although after bishop e3, you can't do that because your bishop's hanging. So you got to take it first, and then you can play that. Yeah, but this is pretty good for white, according to Stockfish. So like this, and I don't know, it's still interesting. Still very interesting. Should white play bishop to e3? Black's bishop's a bit scary on the diagonal. Yeah, I think bishop e3 is the best move. That's what Stockfish is saying. Yes. Now's the time. It's been sitting there for a long time. It's time to develop the bishop, get the rook involved, and potentially trade those guys off. You're absolutely right. But there are some other like ideas like queen c4, queen g4, trying to offer a queen trade. Even something like maybe knight c4, bringing the knight back to attack the pawn and maybe even come over and defend, probably is going through his mind. So a lot of different options still for white. Let's go back, check Fabi's game. Yep, so they did do some more trades. So just to kind of recap, we get the trade here. We get the trade on e1. And now I guess we're going to see knight to d3 working these guys. And it's a pretty equal position. Yeah. I guess what's the line going to be here? Does the rook go over? There's quite a few lines. If you play over here, then black's going to take the pawn, and it's very much a draw. After this, king goes back. You take here. Yeah, if we get this, it's for sure a draw. And then what if you play something like rook e4, bishop takes here. This is also very, very drawish. It's even, a couple of pieces left, yeah. That game's looking like a draw more and more I look at it. All right, here we go. Hikaru. Let's just do a quick check actually on the report game. Haven't looked at this one in a while. Okay, nobody's moved. So, Firouzja, 19 minutes. Guard move 24. We're going to see some time pressure in a lot of these games. Check Duda's game. 12 minutes. They're on move 32 though, so that's not so concerning. And Hikaru's game is probably the biggest time pressure one right now. Just going to keep flipping quickly. We see a new move. All right, we have a move here. Nepo does play knight to d3. And a lot of ways that Fabi can approach this: rook to e4, rook to d1, even rook to e2. What's the idea with rook to e2? Just this trade, and it's very equal. Even though white has an extra pawn in this case, it's like probably realistically you're not going to be able to make progress. In this case, black's king is right there, and the pawns are just really, really ugly. So how did Hikaru get into a worse position? According to Stockfish, it wasn't clear for me that white is better here. Yeah, so let's go look at the Hikaru game. So the opening was pretty straightforward. White has a slight advantage, as you would expect in most openings. A4. The move that Stockfish really didn't like was sort of didn't like this move, but also this move. Bishop G4 was kind of the big one. Basically, you're giving up a pawn by doing that, and Stockfish is saying, I don't think you're getting enough compensation. So the reason you're giving up a pawn is because what happened in the game, white can just take here, and eventually, even if you trade this or not, when black recaptures, white's going to take this pawn. And you're giving it a protected passed A pawn now. You're going to play B4, A5, right? Just as an example, something like this. You're going to push these guys up, and that's really good for white. So that's why Stockfish said, no, you shouldn't have played bishop G4. Just play bishop to B6. Defend your pawn. And if white takes, okay, you don't lose your A pawn. The game goes on. It's pretty equal. But Hikaru goes for this line, and now he's just down a pawn, and he's trying to create counter chances. So bishop G4 was really the big mistake, you could say. I mean, a big mistake. It's a small mistake, but that's the mistake. And then here we go. This is the live position. Now he's trying to do something over here, because if the pieces get traded off, white's going to win this endgame because of this pawn. That pawn is going to be so strong, it's going to require like a major piece to just sit there and guard it from pushing and becoming a queen, and that opens up all of white's pieces to go and start taking other stuff on the board, right? And so that's why Hikaru was not in a great position. Now, if he's able to create some sort of checkmate, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter that there's an extra pawn. So that's what he's going for. Will we see a rematch between Magnus and Jan? Yeah, maybe. I mean, there's a couple of things. First of all, is Nepo going to actually hold on and win? And then the other question is Magnus going to play him again? He's mentioned not wanting, to do that. So I don't know. We will see. All right, let's go do a quick check. Okay, Abby's still thinking. Duda is thinking. Report game. We have a move. Queen to h4. Black is slightly better. Actually, we have a couple moves here. So, bishop to b1. Engine was not a huge fan. Okay, it attacks the queen. See, this is a moment where I'm like, why don't you just take the pawn? Like, am I missing something? Like, if you're going to move the bishop anyway, why don't you just at least get a pawn? What's the deal? Because queen to d2 happens. And you have to, what, you have to trade? Or what if you just move your bishop back here? Now, this is why I'm not a GM, because I would, that's why you don't do that. I see. So yeah, you can get the pawn, but this pawn is going to be hanging in all those lines. Okay, I get it now. So you have to keep that. So you play bishop to b1. Now black goes queen e5. Queen h4. I don't know. Black's position looks pretty nice. This queen is like kind of a monster just in the center of the board there. Like, it's attacking all kinds of stuff. Got your rook involved. I guess the big thing that white has going for them is that black can't castle. But other than that, black's position doesn't look too bad. Go to the Nepo game, all right? Let's do it. Nepo game, yeah, we're just waiting now for Fabi. This is looking very drawish, though. the excitement kind of went out of this position when they traded everything on f5. If white would have played bishop f1, that's where white was totally winning. But now it's, I mean, looks like a draw. Caro game. Timur is thinking. So it was an evaluation mistake, not a blunder. Yeah, it wasn't a blunder for sure. He probably just thought he was gonna maybe get more of an attack on the king side than he actually could get. Is probably what happened. All right, so we're just waiting for everybody to make a move at this point. Everybody is thinking. This looks still probably drawish. Those of you who don't know, I just released a new course. If you haven't checked it out, it's on sale from now until July 4th. I think I put a link in the description, but put a lot of time into this course. So it's for E4 players. So if you like to play E4, you should definitely check it out. I'll just show you real quick while we're waiting here. This is the one, and it's 11 hours. Basically, there's like a section against everything that black will play. So against E5, you've got all your lines there, and these are all like super obscure, aggressive lines. So it's a lot of fun. Sicilian, the French, Scandinavian, all the main responses for black. And yeah, I've had a lot of fun like learning and playing these lines. So check it out if you haven't already. Rook to E7 check for Xian's king away. Let's go look at that. Who would your bet be to win this competition? I think Hikaru has a very good chance if he can pull off this game. He kind of had a slow start, like lost like early, and then some draws. But since then, he's really been picking up steam and gaining confidence, and that's kind of huge. Like confidence is very important, and so I have a feeling he has a very good chance. And that being said, I don't know if he's going to be able to catch Nepo. It was looking like maybe Nepo was going to lose him, and then I definitely would have said I thought Hikaru had a chance, but I don't know. And then Fabiano is also very good, um, but sometimes I think he goes for these sort of like safer lines as opposed to like taking a little bit more risk. So I don't know. I would have to say it's probably going to be Hikaru, Fabiano, or Nepo, and I have been really impressed though with Rapport and his sort of. As soon as I say that, we see a pretty big mistake. Anyway, Rapport has been playing some like interesting stuff. This looks like it's a blunder though. Yeah, he was minus 0.6 and now it's plus 1.7. So what is the problem with this move? Wow. Okay. Do you guys want to try to find that? You can check out the courses. There's a link in the description of the video of this live stream. So you just scroll down there. It says my courses, and that'll take you right to the courses page. My new course is the 7 Genius Openings one. Okay, so Bishop C4 was bad because Rook F5, and it was played pretty much right away. And then queen to b2 was played. And Stockfish is saying white is just winning now. Wow. Stockfish is saying rook to e1. With the threat, I guess, of just pushing here and busting open the king. Bishop to e6. Queen to g3. Ignoring this and going for the attack over here. You have to play queen to d2. And then a3. I mean, that's like such a weird move. I don't see what's going on. This is the only winning move according to Stockfish. A3. You just kind of leave everything sit and you play a3. I mean, that's not going to be easy to find. That is not going to be easy to find. So if you don't play a3 in that line, and you play, sorry, if you play, like, what's the next move? Rook to g1. That's also a weird move. I don't like. Let's just say this move, and you just lose your rook. So you kind of have to. Oh, you have to leave that because of this. That's why a3 was played. What if you play something like h3? What happens? See, what I don't understand is why is a3 so good? Stockfish, you're confusing me. I'm at a loss, guys. I don't get it. Like, I understand, okay, you want to just kind of leave the tension on all these pieces. But, like, when I compare a move like h3 to a3, Stockfish says, nope, you're crazy. You missed it. You blew it. But I don't understand why it's saying h5. h4, I don't know. I do not get it. Anyway, this is, oh, rook g1 was played? Sorry. I need to just switch here and make sure I'm on the right position. Yes, rook g1 was played. Wow. That's not the move. Stockfish says rook e1 was the move, not rook to g1. Wow. Okay, let's see what's going on. Hikaru's game, we do have a move. Bishop e3 was the top move, so Hikaru's on the clock with 13 minutes. We will come right back in just a second. Let's check this game. Okay, nobody has moved. Oh, Fabiano's down to 5 minutes. He still has to make 13 moves. Although it's a pretty easy position. He plays rook e4. Yeah, it's a pretty easy position, especially that now that he probably just calculated like a bajillion lines. We're going to see like some quick moves now. Let's go back to the Hikaru game. Hikaru takes the bishop. And we should see pawn captures pretty quickly, I imagine. There you go. Queen to d5. I think that was a top Stockfish move. Yes, it was. Queen to d5. Wow. You know what's funny about this move? We just talked about how Hikaru needed to like create an attack and how in almost all the other lines trading queens was a bad decision. Now it's like it's actually the best option that Black has because it's going to fix his pawn structure. And I guess you get some counterplay here, and you sort of have a little bit of pressure over there temporarily, so the rook kind of has to sit there. However, Stockfish still says white's winning. White's was still winning. It likes to move rook to e2, which looks like a completely insane move. I can't imagine that any human would play that. But the sort of natural trading queens also looks pretty good for white. So, yeah, interesting. All right, let's go back here. Okay, so we see bishop takes b2. Fabiano with 4 minutes. Let's check the report game. We do see bishop to e6. That's what Stockfish was saying. I think that's what Stockfish was saying. No, Stockfish was saying rook to d2. Oh my. Oh my. He doesn't like this. He doesn't like this move. Because white has queen g3. Going for this. And how do you deal with that if you're black? How do you deal with that if you're black? You don't. You can't. If you try to defend it with your rook, rook to f2, attacks the queen. Queen has like nowhere to move. The queen has to go to the corner. And you play bishop c2? What is going on? The queen takes. Rook to d1. Stockfish is crazy. Like, these are not like human moves. So this game is like really interesting all of a sudden. All right, so this is the live position. Queen g3 is, first of all, the best move. But even after like rook g8, it's not super clear. I thought, initially I was thinking you would sack, or you would take the knight, but then I realized the queen, yeah. I don't know what's going on, guys. I really don't know what's going on. Except that we're about to get some fireworks. All right, queen d5. Timur is still debating if he wants to do the queen trade. Here we go. What happened here? So rook to e4, bishop takes b2, bishop to e3. Yeah, and Stockfish just says it's a dead draw. Check real quick on the Duda game. That looks pretty drawish. And here we go, Hikaru's game again. All right. Wow. Richard and Ali Riza are not playing the best chess. Yeah, you could say that. But, I mean, the mistakes that they're making, it's easy for us when we have the engine, just be like, oh, what are you doing? Like, what are you playing? But when you're playing the game, like, it's not easy. It is not easy to figure out this stuff. All right, so bishop to e3. The best move is queen g3. 12 minutes. Is Ali Riza going to find it? I don't know. You love this channel so much, you started watching it randomly, and now you're into chess. Thanks. Awesome. I am glad you're into chess, and I'm glad you watched the channel. The most interesting types of checkmates are smothered checkmates. Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. All right, I'm just going to like kind of go rapid fire here between the games just so we don't miss any moves. Is he going to find queen to g3? That is the question. Hikaru Nakamura. Is white going to trade queens and go into the winning endgame, but still maybe not that easy? Are they going to draw this game? I imagine the answer is yes. Probably going to see some trades and yeah. Well, king g2 had to be played. Oh, because you lose the bishop otherwise? You don't actually get take that pawn. I mean, to keep that pawn, sorry. So yeah, probably a draw there. All right, let's go back here. 11 minutes on the clock. Hikaru game. There we go. Bishop takes a7. 4 minutes left for 10 moves, but the position is pretty straightforward at this point. All right, I think we need to focus on the report game. Oh, queen g3 was played. There you go. So he finds the move. And I don't know what report is going to do now. Stockfish says you got to play knight to d7 to create the counterattack on the bishop. Oh, it also opens up the queen to defend the pawn. Wow, this position is super weird. It's just really weird. Like, you got the random queen over here. You've got the bishop on b1, which is like what's happening. You've got black not castled. White's looks sort of safe, but at the same time, I mean, it's just really weird. But even though black is kind of losing, there's still a lot of options that can be played. Knight to d7. Queen to a1, which looks absurd. h5. b4? I mean, just ignoring this. Rockfish is so crazy. What about rook g8? What happens here? This is the super crazy line that we looked at. Rook to f2. Queen has to go in the corner. You sort of trap the queen, but not really, because now you've given it a place to go to. And then you just randomly play rook d1. Oh, because you want to get rid of that rook so your queen can come down. I see now. Now I get it. So you've got the attack on the queen, and you have queen coming down here, which is bad news. I guess it's bad news for black. So what if you just, let's just say, move your queen to a random square? Yeah, it's checkmate after this. Wow. Okay. All right, we got some moves happening over here. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's going on. We missed. So they took the pawn, plays rook over, bishop comes back, bishop to f8. Yeah, too bad. Let's check the Hikaru game. Still thinking. All right, guys. I need to take a 2-minute break. I'm gonna run to the restroom, and I am going to leave. Let's see. Do you guys want to see the Hikaru game or the Rapport game? These are definitely the two most interesting ones. I feel like the Rapport game is more interesting right now, but I'll let you guys vote on that. You want the Hikaru game right here, or do you want the Rapport game? Rapport gets a vote. Yeah. And it's just, yeah, Rapport. Okay, I'm going to leave this one. Sounds good. So, yeah, he just played knight to d7. And, wow, they are moving quickly. Knight to d7. Bishop to d6. Was bishop d6 the right move? It was. It was. Only move, and it was the right one. Wow. Rapport's in trouble. He's in trouble. The more the engine thinks, the more it likes White's position. All right. Here's the Rapport game. I will be right back, guys. Give me 1 second. All right, we're back. What did I miss? So bishop d6, queen to d4 was played, which is a pretty good move. One of the stockfish moves, not the best one. So what's going on here? What is going on? Obviously, black's king looks not super safe, but you can't immediately come in because everything is defended. There's some tension here, but I don't think black really wants to ever take that, because then this rook comes over and it's not looking good. So, Stockfish says you got to just double up the rooks here. And knight to b6, and then bishop to c5. Wow. So now it's saying bishop takes f5, e takes f5, knight f6. Now it's saying this is equal. I don't know what's going on. I don't even think Stockfish knows what's going on in this position. I really don't think it knows. Yeah, bishop c5 is an idea at some point, but right now the knight is defending it. All right, did we miss anything in the Hikaru game? No, everybody is still thinking. All right, Nepo game. Yeah, we're heading towards a draw. Black actually has a slight advantage because of that extra pawn, but realistically, it's probably not going to matter. Duda game, looking very much like a draw. Yeah, this is the exciting one for sure right here. All right, 8 minutes for Faruja, 15 for Rapport, 10 moves to go. That's a lot of moves, especially in a position like this. That is a lot of moves. The game could be over in 10 moves. We might be looking at the end of the game here in these last about 20 minutes or so. Best move according to Stockfish is this, followed by e5, followed by bishop c2. Although it did seem to get kind of confused the further you let it analyze, so I don't really know. Let's check over here. We have a move played. Queen to g4. So he decides to not trade queens, which is interesting because what happens after this? Now he trades queens. Huh. So he's going for like leaving the pawns all messed up, but still trading queens and giving up the f pawn. Interesting. Which Hikaru played immediately. Move 26. Both players are now in time pressure. 14 moves to go. And I mean, it definitely looks more pleasant for white. Definitely looks more pleasant for white. This guy is the reason why. Rook to e2. He's defending this. This is still a threat. You got to push it to try to trade it off. If white captures, of course, that's bad for white. So I don't think white will take that. Check the report game. Oh. See? Oh, that is the move that Stockfish was saying. I was moving the wrong rook, guys. I was moving the wrong rook the whole time. Wow. That's embarrassing. All right. Rook f to f1 is this rook. The f rook, not the g rook. I was moving rook g to f1. That's why the lines weren't making sense that I was looking at. And he finds it. Stockfish move to just retreat the rook. I apologize for everybody that I probably confused. Anyway, white is still very much in the driver's seat, although it's not easy to play when you only have 6 minutes on the clock and you have to make 9 more moves. So we will see. We will see. Let's go back to the Hikaru game. We're getting some action here. Let's see what happened. So c5 was played. Knight to c6. And c takes b4 was a big mistake. Stockfish said knight f6 had to be played. Didn't like trading at all. Because now you just have these pawns that are just over here, and that's not looking fun. So Hikaru has a rough task ahead of him, namely for a couple of reasons. This outside pass pawn Something about knights that you should know about, they're not good at stopping outside past pawns. Not to mention, the knight is all the way over here. Now, of course, there are some rooks on the board as well, so it's not that easy, but this is like, this knight is really perfectly placed to help escort this. I can envision black's rook getting stuck in the corner over here guarding this pawn, which is not what you want. It's not what you want for your rooks. Okay, we got some moves. On the report game, h5 has been played. So he's saying, okay, if I can't castle and use my rook normally, I'm going to just do something like this. And it's not that easy for white to figure out. I mean, Stockfish loves white's position, but practically speaking, I mean, you're down 2 pawns, and the rook is coming. He does play e5, which is a good move. Stockfish evaluation is jumping all over the place as it analyzes. Yeah, they're just talking about this line. If you play this, you can actually take this. I'm listening to the commentary. Wow, that is something. Yeah, so if you play g6, if they take, it's checkmate. You have to block, and this is game over. But after this, black doesn't have to take. They can take on e5, which is crazy because it gives the king an escape square. And I don't even know what's going on in that position. So, wow. Okay, but let's go back to the game. Queen to g4 was played. And now queen to e3. Stockfish move. Wow. All right, why did Hikaru go into the endgame? Um, he kind of didn't have much of a choice. So if we go back to that position, it's a good question. There's not a lot of other moves here for black. Like, let's just say this one, I think, is the other one that the engine was saying. The issue is white's going to do this, and let's see what happens if you take this. There's something here, I think. He takes this, and how do you make progress to attack the king? I mean, I guess you can try to bring the queen in, but it doesn't quite work for some reason. Yeah, white just takes this, and white's completely winning. And so there just wasn't really a nice attack there, basically, is what it came down to. And so he decided to just go for the endgame, and he knew it was going to be a worse endgame, no doubt, but he's going to try to hold on for the draw, is what's going to happen. So here we are live in that position. Fabiano has 1 minute to make 3 more moves, but it looks pretty straightforward. So I think he's going to be able to do that without too much trouble. Here's the report game. Hmm. Do I have favorite commentators? Not really. I mean, I guess I like Hess and Danya and Danny. I think Danny's kind of funny, so I enjoy those guys. But yeah, I like pretty much everybody. Just like watching interesting games. Um, I'm hoping that we can see the end of some of these games because I do need to go to lunch relatively soon. So we will see if some of them end before the time control or not. Because at time control, I'm probably going to have to go. This one needs 10 more moves. Yeah, this definitely looks like it's going to be a long game. That's going to take some time. This one, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to make 7 more moves without somebody making a blunder. I don't know. I mean, if anyone blunders, it looks like it might be Rapport just because he's the one kind of defending here and has to be really careful. But that being said, um, I don't know. Perugia with 5 minutes. Oh, H4. Okay. H4 and H3. Wow. Guess it makes sense. If H3 happens and that diagonal gets open, that's not going to be, sorry, can't draw arrows apparently. That's not going to be a good thing. And so H3 is kind of necessary, I guess, to stop that. Makes sense. Now black could magically teleport this knight right here. That would be something. Takes 3 moves. But you can't go to any of those squares. That's the issue. Queen to H5, and this is move 34. So we have 6 moves to go before they get extra time. 5 minutes and 8 minutes on the clock. Bishop to E4. Good moves. And I believe we just got a result. Let's see. Yes, we are getting a draw right now. Fabi and Nepo through the game. So it's unfortunate for Fabiano because if we go back, Bishop to F1, like we saw earlier, was completely, I mean, I say completely, it was very good for white, right? When all the pieces came off. Right here, instead of Bishop takes F5, if he would have just played Bishop F1, White was going to have a very nice game ahead of him, and who knows what would have happened. But after the trade, everything kind of comes off, and it's just a equal position. There's not much going on, right? So we end up with the draw. All right. Nakamura game. Wow. What happened here? This pawn is just going. It's going. It's going very quickly. A6. And you can see White's advantage is growing as well. Yikes. Not looking good for Hikaru. Let's go back to the report game. We have some other moves here. So Bishop E4 was played, and then Queen to H6. He's offering the Queen trade, which would be a good thing for report. Like if this happens, much better for Black. I mean, it's still it's better for White, but it's not as good. It's an improvement for Black. Still kind of a tough position, but that's definitely a step in the right direction. So Faruja's probably not going to take that. He takes it. No, 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 no. Sorry, sorry. I'm confusing myself, guys. He didn't take it. He didn't take it. He's thinking. Okay. He took the queen. That was just my analysis. Report could play bishop c4 instead. Bishop c4. Yeah, you could play that. Engine just says to take on c6, and I guess you just give up this. Oh, because e6 is winning. Wow. Such a crazy position. Like, lots of cool little lines. Okay, that was not played. Queen f3 was played in the game. Here you go. So he does keep the queens on the board. Now, the engine says that was not the best square. It wanted queen a7. It wanted queen d4. It wanted queen a3. So what I'm seeing here is it, and even rook f4, it wanted the queen to stay on the dark squares, right? And you guys see how the dark squares are like being controlled by white because of that bishop? Sokovich is saying, hey, you need to keep the queen somewhere here. It didn't like queen f3. It didn't like that because you step off of the dark squares, which is interesting. Still better for white, but just not quite as accurate. See how Hikaru is doing. 4 minutes to play 8 moves and figure out how to stop this guy. This guy right here. Not easy to do. Not easy at all. Wow. Let's check this game real quick. Duda is 1 minute left. Okay, but he only has to make one more move. All right, fine. Hikaru, 3 minutes, 50 seconds. Report. Both players getting low on time. Still 4 moves to go in this game. Wow. I mean, how is white going to make progress, I guess? Because now it's where it gets a little tricky. If you push it here, I guess the knight can come over here and blockade it. You also have the pressure on this pawn, which I don't think really matters. It has to do with, can you figure out a way to get rid of the rook and push this guy? I mean, it's not that easy, I don't feel like, for white to figure out a way to win. Even though it's clearly better, it's like, okay, I got my pawn down here, but now what do I do? Hikaru's position is almost resignable. I don't think it's resignable yet. Because there's no clear, at least from what I'm looking at, I don't see like a clear way to push this. Like if you imagine if Hikaru gets like 2 free moves in, like let's just say he plays here and white just does some random move and then goes back. Okay, so we gave Hikaru a couple moves. Stockfish does still say it's really, really good for white. You might be right. I just don't see it myself. I don't. Once the knight gets here to blockade the pawns, I feel like it's much more difficult for white to figure out a way to win. But could be wrong, because maybe you just shift your focus to like attacking some other stuff. I don't know. He does play knight to d7. So knight d7 is played. Let's check the report game. We have a move. A couple moves. We have f6 played. And now bishop takes c6. Wow. Okay, so 5 minutes for report. 2 minutes for Fallujah. Wow, here's a funny line for you. If you take this, how's that for a cool checkmate? Because the knight's pinned. Wow, look at that. So you can't take, or it's game over. They're showing the same line on the commentary. What else can black play? King f7, I guess, is what you have to do. Get out of the pin. You have to give up all these pawns, basically, just to get your king safe and get this rook into the game. All right, let's check Hikaru's game. Nothing new here. Duda's game, they did make time control. Oh my. The last move of time control was a blunder? There was only one move here for black. Bishop to h5. Why is this a blunder? Oh, because rook c7 and you've got some big problems. You've got some big problems. If you played bishop h5 and rook c7, now you can play g5. Everything gets defended. Yes, you lose this pawn, but it doesn't really matter. You take this pawn and everything is great. I mean, I don't know if everything is great, but according to Stockfish, you're okay here. Yeah, you're fine if this happens. But in the game, after bishop takes e4, rook c7 is going to happen. And now black's in trouble. Black's just losing now. Wow. Wow. And it was a time pressure blunder. So Ding is probably going to win this game after all of that on the 40th move. Wow. Okay. Didn't see that one coming. All right, let's go back to the game here. So rook c2 is played. King to f7. Ooh. Engine doesn't like something here. No, it's just analyzing deeper and it's seeing that it's just much better for white. That's what's happening. How can Timur go wrong? Yeah, I mean, I guess the way that he could go wrong is if Hikaru is somehow able to pick off this pawn at the right moment and white doesn't really have a follow-up, then you can sort of blockade it, and then this is kind of weak, and so that could be how. It's unlikely, but I mean, I've seen crazier things, so we'll see. 2 minutes to go there. What's happening here? Wow, 2 minutes to go. 2 more moves need to be played. Let's check what happened. So he did play king f7, did take the pawn, queen to h5, trying to get rid of all these checkmate threats. 2 minutes for Firouzja, 2 minutes for Rapport. They both have to make 2 more moves. This is exciting stuff. Queen to e4. A pretty good move. Keeping the queens on the board, which makes a lot of sense. White's king is much safer than black's king. I like that. Really rough position to play when you only have a minute on the clock and you still have to make 2 moves. Because there's so many like lines and variations that you would love to take some time to calculate, and you just can't. You have to just calculate like a few simple things and make a decision. Yeah, it's not looking good for Rapport in this game. Which means Nepo and Fabiano are just going to get that much further away. And then if Hikaru loses, it's kind of like looking like either Fabiano or Nepo are going to be the only people that really have a chance to win this thing. 45 seconds. Rapport has to make 2 more moves. So it's move. This is the 39th move, so there's one of them. He has to get to move 40, and then he gets extra time. But until he gets there, all he has left is 35 seconds. So that's one move. He needs one more move, and Firouzja has to play this move before the time runs out, and then he'll get more time as soon as he plays this move. So he's probably going to think for a minute and 20 seconds and then make his move. And then Rapport will have 35 seconds. I don't want to leave this game, but I want to see what's happening in Hikaru's game as well. Oof. Wow. All right, let's go back to the Rapport game here. And then we'll jump over to Hikaru and see what's going on. I mean, Stockfish says there's 2 moves that keep the big advantage for white. Bishop to e2 and bishop takes e5. So if Firouzja plays one of these 2 moves, he's going to have a very big lead going into the extra time. If he doesn't play one of these 2 moves, there's no telling. Much more equal. Any other move and it's much more equal. So we will see. Is he going to play one of these 2 moves? 29 seconds. Here we go. He's got to make a decision. 20 seconds. He does. He does play one of the correct moves. And now it really doesn't matter what Rapport plays. It's not looking good. Knight g4 is a move. and rook takes d6 is the other move, giving up the queen for the two bishops. He's got 15 seconds. He's going to have to just go for something. Queen to g5. Wow. All right. Let's check the Hakura game. They've made time control as well. Okay, so let's talk about what's going on. First of all, the Duda game looks like was just thrown on move 40 by playing bishop takes c4. White's completely winning now because of the threats here and also this pawn. Bad news for Duda. Okay, the Rapport game. These last couple moves happened very quickly, but queen e4 was a good move. The thing is, white has lots of good moves, and Frugia was playing them. Black doesn't really have any good moves, so it doesn't really matter what you play. Bishop e2 was one of the only two moves that he needed to play, which he did find. Okay, queen to g5. Now they're going to think for a while and probably use most of that extra time to find the winning line. But yeah, this is completely winning for white. The move is bishop takes e5. And it's just a free piece, actually, because this is pinned. So you take this, you can't take it back. And I guess Rapport's probably going to resign pretty soon. As soon as this happens. Let's go check Hikaru and see what happened in the time scramble. So we saw this position. The rook came over. King came up. Knight back here. C5. Very gutsy move, giving the two pawns. Now there's two connected pass pawns by doing this. Okay, he takes the one. Knight to b6. Something went wrong here. e4 was not accurate. So c7 was supposed to be played, but he only had 2 minutes. Okay, so he was moving quickly. Oh, because this is only move 37. He still had to make 4 moves at this point. So he plays e4. Rook over, it's fine. King comes up. Rook to a6 is fine. Rook to d4. Knight to d5. Totally winning for white. And then what happened? King to d6. Oh, no, it's totally winning. I thought I saw earlier that the evaluation was different. I don't know what I was looking at. What position was I looking at when I saw that? Was it this one? No. Maybe the engine just didn't know what was going on when I looked at it earlier. Yeah, totally winning. It's over. It's over for Hikaru. Wow. So we're going to see probably a resignation pretty soon here. It looks like c7 check just kind of wins on the spot. Let's see if we can understand why. So it's obviously check on the king. The king has a couple of options. You can go back here or you can come up here. If you come up here, then this rook gets involved. Your king is running all the way over here, and you fall into this fork, which forks everything. You got to take it. And after this happens, there's just too much. White's going to win with one of the pawns becoming a queen. And if you keep your king back here, this one's a little bit trickier to find, but rook to g1, coming over to this side of the board. And what happens after g5? Then just rook f1. You're coming in this way. And even though you lose that pawn, you come in with check. And what happens here? How does this win? How does this win? This one's kind of tricky to see. This line is not so simple. Rook a to f6, check, check, check. King comes up and wow, you just come over here and like eventually you have checkmate. This is not that easy, guys, to see. Oh, you have mate. Wow. Okay. I mean, how many moves did I just look at? Like 10 or 12 moves? That one's, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely a win, but that's not an easy line to find. You know, check the king moves and then you got to do all this dancing around. Sorry, I'm all over the place, guys. I apologize. You got to find this idea of bringing the rook over and then back and then coming in and bringing this rook over and your king kind of marches up the board. We'll see. I mean, I imagine he'll probably find a way to win, but that's not as easy as I thought it was. regardless, definitely winning for white. This is the current position. Oh, he played knight b6. He didn't play c7. Never mind. So does he see a different win? Still a good move. Maybe he sees something that's more human friendly and simpler. So knight takes b6, rook takes b6, king c7. What's the win here? What is the win here for white? You can throw in the check, but then I'm going to take this. And now, how do you win? You go here, but no, but then I can bring my rook back, right? No, then you take the rook and get the queen. So you have to do this, and it's over. Yes. Okay. So that makes sense. I guess there's not really any other try for Hikaru, is there? Probably going to see a resignation here. Probably going to see a resignation here. Bishop takes e5 is played. And I imagine we're going to see a resignation here at some point. This one might take a little longer, but this is really bad news for black. Really bad. Wow. All right. We see a resignation. There you go. Rapport just resigned, I believe. Mm-hmm. Yep. So Faruja's first win. There you go. All right. And then this game, surely Hikaru is going to resign shortly, I imagine. And then the Duda game. Wow. Well, guys, I need to go. I have to eat lunch and check in with the family. I think we saw most of the exciting moments. I'm anticipating this is going to be a long grind, but a win for Ding. Uh, it has to do with this pawn, very annoying pass pawn, and also the king placement. Black's king is not safe, and look at White's amazing pieces. So I believe that the Ding will probably win this game. Wow, interesting turn of events, and I will catch up with you guys later. Thanks for everybody for tuning in, and yeah, we'll see you in the next round.